I am Carrie Stokes-Holst. I am based in Billings, Montana, where I'm the general manager of the Yellowstone Valley Food Hub. So we, as the Yellowstone Valley Food Hub, sat on the Billings Food System Assessment working group, and we're a part of building that coalition, or working with that coalition. The Yellowstone Valley Food Hub sits in this food system network as a place primarily for sales, aggregation, and distribution. I view this work as being really important because I think that there's not always a great place for like both aggregating thoughts, so like being a part of like the coalition and seeing other people who are working on local food is really helpful for us to know kind of where the gaps are in the system and where we can improve. Where I think it's important for Yellowstone Valley Food Hub to sit and exist is that there's not a great place where local food is exchanged in Billings that we're seeing. So there aren't great marketplaces for kind of exclusively local products where like small farmers and ranchers can connect that food to customers in their own community. I would view success at the Yellowstone Valley Food Hub as every single person in our local community at this point, so kind of in the Billings, Red Lodge, Big Timber, Bridger area, as well as probably going into northern Wyoming, every individual consumer being able to access whatever local product they want to when they want to, eh, all within seasonality, of course, and what's actually being able to be grown. But if something is available, that a consumer is able to access it, and vice versa, any small local producer, grower, rancher being able to access a market where they can sell to local customers. What is going well for the Yellowstone Valley Food Hub right now is, I think, part of a broader conversation around food. So I think people are really thinking about their food, where it comes from, who's growing it, thinking about all of those components of the food system and realizing how disconnected they are from it when they're operating on such a national and international level and relying on products to kind of come into town. And so I think we're really benefiting from that conversation, that people are seeking us out in different ways than they have before, and it's different customers that are seeking us out than ever have before. I think our big challenges are leveling up, meeting customers and producers where they are to facilitate the marketplace at an effective price point, and hopefully building a network they can compete with a international, you know, hyper efficient distribution system. So what are the challenges? So I would say what we're seeing at the Yellowstone Valley Food Hub is cost is always a challenge. So I think both cost that customers are willing to pay, again, because when you're moving down to this scale and you're thinking about that every single person along this chain, you want them to be able to, particularly if they're Montanans, right? You want the farmer to be able to make a living wage for their product. You want um, the person who's aggregating and distributing and doing all of that work to be able to keep the lights on in their warehouse, right? So someone like the Yellowstone Valley Food Hub, so we have to take, some sort of markup there to keep our lights on. You have to pay for someone who's actually doing the delivery driving and pay for gas and pay for the refrigeration in the truck. And then when it gets to its ultimate destination, even if you're just moving it a few hours, down the highway across the state, that's expensive. And we're not always willing to pay all those components. And so finding a good cost point where everyone can win is definitely something that's a challenge right now and something we're continuing to work on because we want to support everyone kind of along the line of that system. And I would say additionally, Montana is still very rural and it's still very disconnected in some ways because Billings is a big city in the state of Montana, but it is a small town in the scope of the world, right? Um,
Mhm.
and and when we think particularly about like central and eastern Montana, like a lot of distribution networks, a lot of roads, a lot of people, like the infrastructure is just not necessarily there to take on kind of this whole distribution system, even if we figure it all out, right, in theory on a spreadsheet or something. It's going to take a lot of work to like actually build, I think, some of that ingrained infrastructure. Would love for more money to flow into schools,
Yeah.
food banks, and other places that are large institutional buyers, um, so that they can purchase local food from local producers. Um, and you can connect to that consumer base again of people who may not be able to do that individually. Again, when you think about local food pricing, it may not be something that an individual family could afford. But if we're paying for that student to have food in their school, it'd be really nice if they were able to eat some local products there. I think that's something that the state of Montana could do for Montanans, and I think would be really wonderful. And I think again, same thing for food banks and food pantries. They're already large institutional buyers, and they do what they can with what they have. But whatever funding um, they could get from more institutional purchasing for local food to help make it affordable, and then give access to people who are visiting and utilizing those services to also have access to really good quality local food is again something that I think is worthwhile use of funds to for the state of Montana to do for Montanans and some of our most vulnerable Montanans. Who could we not do this work without? I would say our greatest collaborators right now are some of the existing and emerging food hubs in the state of Montana. So, kind of building a food hub network again to help build some of this distribution and aggregation, movement of goods infrastructure, as well as just thought partners for like what's working in all these different areas and how we can rely on each other. So it's good to have like a community of people who are building this out. And then it's easier for us to work from like food hub to food hub to then like move product for like multiple producers or ranchers at a given time on one truck or something like that versus dealing with each individual farmers and ranchers, scattered throughout the state. So I'd say that's huge. And then in terms of getting the word out, partners like Abundant, Arrow, like that marketing and like the voices who are talking about local food, that is always going to prompt someone to come to the hub or to search out local food in their area, which may be again another food hub in Great Falls or Missoula or somewhere like that. But then that's gonna ultimately hopefully connect back to us and that network of local food distribution. We have a lot of different relationships with our producers, but I would say our core relationship and what I think makes something like the Yellowstone Valley Food Hub special is that we are a member-owned cooperative. So the majority of our producers are members of the cooperative and they own the hub. So they get ultimate decision-making power. I work to help support them, their hopes and dreams for what they want the food hub to look like, what they want the local food ecosystem to look like. And so I can be the boots on the ground for kind of some of their vision, which allows them to do what they're good at, which is farming and ranching. And they don't have to do as much of the work of, okay, well, like, how do I sell my product now? And do I need to take a lot of pictures of it? And like, how do I run credit cards on my website and stuff like that? So we can take on a lot of that admin and these member producers own the hub, and it both facilitates their own sales as well as those of their community, other community members. So anytime someone's buying, you know, a head of lettuce from one of our producers, what's also available on there are carrots from another producer, beef from another, pork from another. And so they're really benefiting and supporting each other. Shopping local always is a priority. So I think buying through the food hub or buying through a food hub close to you, there's one in many different parts of the state. So if looking for local food is something you're interested in, find a food hub around you in the state um, to help kind of support both the infrastructure of like kind of building up this local food network so we can better distribute goods from Montana to Montanans. Yeah, and put your money, where your values are. So really invest in these local producers, and they'll invest right back in the community. So I think, yeah, it's money for sure, but you get something from it. You get the food, which is even better. Yeah. I would say I don't think the market is tapped out. So I think there's a lot of room for people who want to be farmers and ranchers and local food makers of like local products. Like we didn't even go into like value added goods, but like we definitely haven't like tapped the extent of the market. We're not overflowing with so many options that there's no space for somebody new to come in. So I think there's so much opportunity for young, old, transitioning career entrepreneurs like in their safe spaces to do it right. So they're great farmers markets that you can tell that while you're figuring out your pricing, all of that kind of stuff. And then you can move to something like a food hub where you can expand your market, gain access to consumers. But I would encourage people who are interested in doing this kind of work to start because I think that there is definitely space for that. Um, I would find peers wherever you can, peer support wherever you can. So I think for me, um, finding people who are also working in emerging food hubs, whether it's in the state of Montana or elsewhere around the US, has been super helpful. Um, I think talking to producers who are actively selling in places like farmers market really helps. So just I think you've got to have boots on the ground a little bit and kind of hear what's really going on.